Arthur Williams Jr., also known as Arthur Art, was America's greatest counterfeiter. He forged millions of dollars and baffled the FBI for years. Imagine this man being caught with a bag containing $60,000 in counterfeit money, yet they couldn't convict him, and he slipped out of their grasp effortlessly. How did he do it? Well, in the end, it was a 15-year-old teenager who brought him down. It's a remarkable story where FBI investigations couldn't touch him, but his son managed to expose him in the most unexpected way. This story has everything: family drama, police investigations, forgery, theft, and unbelievable twists. It's a tale you can't miss. Today's central figure is Arthur Williams II, also known simply as Arthur II. Within the annals of American crime, Arthur II holds the title of the most adept currency forger to have ever graced the nation's underworld. His skill in replicating dollars to perfection remains unmatched. Arthur's journey into the realm of illicit activities commenced in his youth. His inaugural brush with criminality occurred when he found himself compelled to break into a parking meter. Arthur embarked on this fateful endeavor, motivated by a desire to alleviate his family's financial strain, mainly to assist his mother in acquiring essential household items. Returning home one day to discover the stark emptiness of the refrigerator, he was overcome with a potent blend of frustration and anger, questioning the unjust circumstances that besieged them. Fueled by his emotions, Arthur ventured out into the streets, his mind seething with unrest. During this tumultuous walk, he chanced upon a solitary parking meter. Frustration boiled over as he impulsively struck the metal contraption, the distinct sound of coins jingling within igniting a spark of possibility in his mind. Driven by a potent mix of desperation and determination, he resolved to extract the contents within the meter. With ingenuity and persistence, Arthur manipulated the mechanisms of the meter, methodically testing various approaches until a breakthrough was achieved. Through a deft maneuver involving a small piece of metal, he successfully bypassed the meter's defenses, unlocking its treasure trove of coins and laying the groundwork for his future exploits in the realm of criminal enterprise. After that, he went to the supermarket and bought groceries for the house. When his mother returned home later, she was surprised. She asked Arthur where he got all these things from. Arthur confessed, "I broke into a parking meter and took the money inside." His mother admonished him, telling him she didn't want him stealing money to buy things for the house. The main reason for their financial struggles was that Arthur's father abandoned them in 1983 when Arthur was only 11 years old. This was one of the biggest shocks he had experienced in his life. After his father left, they couldn't afford rent and had to leave their home, living in a homeless shelter for a while. Their only goal during that time was survival. Eventually, they were relocated to one of the government-supported housing projects. It was a dark period in Arthur's life. Every time he saw his mother exhausted and desperate, it fueled his anger towards his father, who had left them in that situation. Living in public housing projects naturally exposed Arthur to gangs and illegal activities. He grew up in that environment, befriending troublesome kids and forming a small gang with them. They engaged in various thefts together, from shoplifting to car thefts and vandalizing parking meters. In 1987, when Arthur turned 15, he met an older man named Da Vinci, who was his mother's boyfriend. Da Vinci was close to Arthur, and one day, when the police caught Arthur trying to steal a car, Da Vinci intervened and released Arthur. As they walked down the street, Da Vinci told Arthur, "If you want to be a criminal and a thief, you need to use smarter methods. Avoid petty thefts like breaking meters and stealing cars and shops. It won't benefit you. You need something better." Arthur asked what that something better was, and Da Vinci said, "Come with me, I'll show you." Da Vinci led Arthur into the basement of an aged warehouse, the dim light casting shadows upon their path. Descending via a creaky old elevator, they emerged into the basement, a realm teeming with various machinery, tools, scattered papers, and sundry items. Arthur's eyes widened in wonderment as he surveyed the scene, greeted by the unmistakable aroma of ink permeating the air. He asked Da Vinci what this place was, and Da Vinci replied, "Come, I'll show you." Then he went to the machines and tools and started working. He would take out papers, apply ink, set the molds, and operate the machines. Arthur quickly grasped the concept. Da Vinci was printing counterfeit money. Arthur was fascinated by what he saw. He saw the money, the paper that controlled everything before him, and he was impressed. Day by day, Da Vinci led Arthur into the workshop, unveiling the intricacies of the printing process. With meticulous care, Da Vinci instructed him on blending colors, crafting molds, and imprinting unique serial numbers on each sheet. Arthur found himself captivated by the artistry inherent in counterfeiting. Beyond the allure of illicit gains, Da Vinci assumed a paternal role in Arthur's life, earning his admiration and respect. Arthur revered him as a mentor and role model, cherishing their bond. As the counterfeit bills flowed and profits mounted, Arthur embraced his newfound role, receiving a portion of each batch as compensation for his labor. What began as an apprenticeship soon evolved into a lucrative job. The situation continued like this for about a year. After that, Da Vinci disappeared. He stopped coming to their house, and they couldn't reach him. When Arthur went to the workshop, the warehouse was closed, and he couldn't enter without a key. Da Vinci simply vanished from their lives, and Arthur felt like his father had abandoned him for the second time. It was a very painful feeling for Arthur. Perhaps Da Vinci's disappearance wasn't a deliberate abandonment. Possibly unforeseen circumstances befell him. Given Da Vinci's involvement in distributing counterfeit currency to criminal organizations, Arthur speculated that he might have encountered trouble. Perhaps a confrontation, abduction, or worse, his demise. This notion left room for hope that Da Vinci might resurface. In light of these uncertainties, Arthur reverted to his former life within the gang. He resumed his criminal activities, stealing from shops and vehicles once more. Arthur's second mistake was getting into an illegal relationship with a girl. As a result of this relationship, he had a child at the age of 17. His son was named Arthur III. He was determined to take care of his son and be present in his life, unlike what his father did to him. With the responsibility of providing for his son and his son's mother weighing heavily on him, Arthur recognized the need to intensify his efforts to secure their livelihood. Collaborating with his companions, they devised a novel scheme to bolster their income, targeting drug dealers. Adopting the guise of law enforcement officers, they traversed the streets in a vehicle resembling a police car. Drawing upon their intimate knowledge of the neighborhood, they precisely identified their targets, aware of their illicit activities and appearances. Armed with this information, they executed their plans swiftly and decisively. Surprise was their ally as they confronted their targets, overpowering them to seize both their narcotics and ill-gotten gains, all while masquerading as legitimate authorities. By the way, this wasn't something strange to the police at that time. Everyone knew that many police officers were corrupt and would take money and drugs for themselves. So what Arthur and his friends were doing wasn't unusual. They kept doing this for some time, but things took a dangerous turn. One of the drug dealers they targeted pulled out his gun and fired at them instead of surrendering. A fight broke out between Arthur's crew and the drug dealers. In the chaos, everyone scattered, running for safety. Arthur sprinted, dodging bullets whizzing past him. Then he felt a sharp pain as a bullet hit his hip and he collapsed. Bleeding heavily, he started losing consciousness, fearing it might be the end, believing they would kill him. After waking up in the hospital bed, Arthur realized something surprising. The gang didn't kill him. They let him bleed until the ambulance arrived and rushed him to the hospital. This experience shook Arthur to his core. He narrowly escaped death. So, he made a big decision. It was time to leave Chicago. He chose to head to Texas, even though it meant leaving behind his son and his son's mother, just like his own father had done to him. It was a tough choice, but Arthur felt unsafe in Chicago and needed a fresh start. In 1993, Arthur arrived in Texas, determined to turn his life around. He took on challenging jobs that didn't pay much, but he stuck with them, determined to leave his criminal past behind him for good. It was a tough journey, but Arthur was determined to make a change. During this time, Arthur crosses paths with a woman named Natalie and quickly falls head over heels for her. As their bond deepened, Arthur felt comfortable enough to reveal his past to her, his history of thefts, counterfeiting, and all. To his surprise, Natalie didn't judge him harshly. Instead, she embraced him as her soulmate. His criminal past didn't faze her. If anything, it intrigued her even more. Natalie saw potential in Arthur's skills, especially his expertise in counterfeiting from his time with Da Vinci. She believed returning to counterfeiting could bring them wealth and improve their lives. Despite Arthur's reservations, Natalie persisted in urging him to reconsider, convinced that together they could conquer any challenges that came their way. When Natalie expressed her enthusiasm for Arthur to continue counterfeiting, he found himself swayed and reassured. If his wife believed in the venture even more than he did, why not give it a shot? With renewed determination, Arthur set about planning the counterfeiting operation. He invested in machinery and secured a printing location, reminiscent of the days spent with Da Vinci, and the invaluable lessons learned from their time together. With each experiment, Arthur honed his craft, striving for perfection in every print. He meticulously scrutinized each counterfeit bill, accepting only flawless results. Gradually, he began producing small quantities of counterfeit money. However, the real challenge lay in spending it without raising suspicion. Arthur approached this cautiously, mindful of the risks involved, a lesson imparted by Da Vinci. He planned to increase production gradually, but initially, his primary focus was ensuring that every counterfeit bill was indistinguishable from genuine currency. It was a meticulous process, but Arthur was determined to succeed. In 1996, Arthur and Natalie faced an unpleasant surprise. The American government introduced a new version of the $100 bill. This version had many security features to stop counterfeiting. For example, when you hold it up to the light, a watermark appears. Also, the ink on the paper changes when you tilt it or look at it from different angles. There's a security strip that turns pink under ultraviolet light, and it includes the Federal Reserve seal. Plus, there are tiny pieces of writing called microprints on the bill. With all these features, counterfeiting became really hard and complicated. The government made this new version to fight widespread counterfeiting in the 90s. They wanted to make it tough for anyone to counterfeit the money. When Arthur saw the new bill, he didn't lose hope. Instead, he felt a surge of excitement. He viewed it as a challenge, an opportunity to assert his mastery of the craft. In Da Vinci's era, advanced tools like computers and design software such as Photoshop didn't exist, but Arthur saw them as revolutionary aids. He might have been among the first to employ these digital technologies in counterfeiting. Before diving into the digital realm, however, they needed to tackle the issue of paper. It had to match the Federal Reserve's paper precisely, as cashiers could easily verify authenticity with a special pen that produced a yellow line on genuine bills. A regular paper would yield a brown line instead. This discrepancy was due to unique chemical substances in the Federal Reserve's paper, a blend of cotton, linen cloth, animal glue, and various chemicals unavailable to the public. The challenge lay in finding something similar. Where could they possibly obtain such specialized materials? Arthur and Natalie started ordering paper from all over the world, literally. They tried every type of paper available, searching for a type that was at least close to the one used for the $100 bill. They devoted considerable time to this endeavor, ordering and testing various types, but to no avail. Despite their efforts, the ink consistently produced a brown hue, indicating failure after failure. As the fruitless experiments mounted, Arthur's desperation grew, evident in the frustration etched upon his face. Then Natalie, in a fit of rage, grabbed the largest book next to her, which happened to be the phone directory. She lifted it towards Arthur as if threatening him, then threw it on the table. Taking the pen, she wrote on the directory, and to their surprise, the line came out yellow. They looked at each other in shock, and then each one of them started screaming with joy and excitement. After that, they tracked down the company that printed the phone directory and contacted them. Natalie contacted them and pretended to be a teacher, saying she had a project with her students and needed this type of paper. The company agreed to provide her with the quantity of paper she needed. Of course, they didn't know they planned to use this paper to print money. Upon receiving the paper, Arthur was astonished by its impeccable quality. Comparing it to genuine currency paper, they found the thickness to be remarkably similar. Excited by this discovery, Arthur proposed to Natalie that they could embed the watermark and security strip between the two sheets. This solution effectively resolved the paper dilemma and addressed the watermark and security strip concerns. The only remaining issue was the changing color. One day, Arthur spotted a car painted with a color that shifted between purple and green, similar to the $100 bill's color-changing effect. Intrigued, he contacted the company that made the car paint and discovered they also supplied ink for government money printing. With all the necessary elements in hand, paper, ink, design, they were almost ready to start printing. But there was still a hurdle to overcome: Printing the money required special equipment. Regular printers couldn't replicate the creamy green color of the money paper. They needed a pressure machine to achieve the right hue. Each sheet had to pass through the machine multiple times to get the color just right. First, they applied the ink, watermark, and security strip, then pressed the paper for the first time. Next, they added the image in the center and pressed it for the second time. Finally, they included the seal, serial number, and other details and pressed it for the third time. They even had a special program to change the serial number for each sheet automatically. This is why Arthur earned his title as America's greatest counterfeit moneymaker. After Arthur and Natalie finished the process, they achieved an incredible result. The paper looked exactly like a real $100 bill. Natalie took charge of testing the newly minted money herself. She visited a small supermarket, requesting a modest purchase worth about $10, and handed the cashier one of their $100 bills. She anticipated receiving $90 in change, confident in the authenticity of their creation. The cashier, as expected, reached for the special pen, drawing a line on the bill. To their relief, the line turned yellow, indicating authenticity. Upon further inspection, the cashier noted the ink changing color and observed the watermark when holding the bill up to the light. Convinced of its legitimacy, the cashier accepted the money, placed it in the cash register, and returned $90 to Natalie. Leaving the supermarket with a sense of satisfaction, Natalie's demeanor conveyed her happiness and relief. As Arthur glimpsed her, he sensed their success would propel them to new heights. From that moment on, they ramped up their counterfeit money operation, likely churning around $50,000 monthly. Despite the professionalism of their work, they remained cautious when spending the money. Over the following year and a half, they adopted a nomadic lifestyle, moving from one location to another to print and spend their money discreetly. They carefully laundered their earnings to avoid detection. Their wealth continued to grow exponentially. At ages 23 and 22, life seemed like a fantasy, with limitless freedom at their fingertips. They expanded their operation, increasing their printing output to sometimes as much as $3,000 in a single day. As their wealth grew, they found themselves needing help with what to do with their money. They indulged in material possessions like children's clothing, diapers, and toys, only to donate them to charitable organizations later, finding fulfillment in helping those in need. They discovered a newfound happiness beyond material wealth. In 2000, Arthur decided to return to his hometown of Chicago with Natalie by his side. Throughout the years, Arthur had been providing financial support to his son and his son's mother. However, after many years of absence, Arthur's return brought about a sudden change in their lives. His son, now 10 years old, began to form a bond with his long-absent father as Arthur started spending time with him, buying toys and other items. Their relationship gradually normalized and grew stronger with each passing day. Upon his return, Arthur reconnected with his old gang and friends from his days of theft. He wasted no time informing them about his new venture, counterfeit money printing. When his friends saw the money, they were shocked, unable to distinguish it from genuine currency. Arthur didn't share this information to boast. Instead, he sought their assistance. He was printing far more money than he could spend alone. Some of his friends had connections to prominent restaurants and nightclubs, making them valuable partners in distributing the counterfeit money. True to his expectations, the money flowed seamlessly into circulation, undetected by anyone. The FBI couldn't ignore the professionally crafted counterfeit money circulating in the market. They regarded it as the highest quality counterfeit dollar available. Despite the substantial amount of Arthur's money in circulation, the quantity he could print was even greater. Arthur decided to start dealing with gangs, because it's much easier for him to take $100,000 of counterfeit money and sell it to the gang for $30,000 rather than try to spend it himself. So he started selling his money to the gang, and they would launder it. When Arthur got involved with gangs, he realized he stepped into a dangerous world. He understood the need to be careful and watchful at all times. Dealing with people capable of taking lives at a moment's notice, like Russian gangs, the Italian mafia, and other criminals, made him cautious. Arthur was alert to everything, constantly observing his surroundings. Before sitting anywhere or entering a room, he checked for surveillance or hidden microphones using devices. During meetings, he used an X-ray device to search everyone, ensuring no one wore a listening device hidden in their clothes. Arthur refused to take any risks in such risky circles. In 2002, a Russian gang Arthur was dealing with invited him to a party filled with illegal substances like marijuana and drugs. Arthur also brought a quantity of counterfeit money intended for the gang. The party took place in a hotel, attracting the attention from hotel staff and other guests who noticed the illegal activities. The gang had booked multiple rooms, including one for Arthur. About half an hour into the party, Arthur heard a knock on his door and a loud voice claiming to be the police. Someone had alerted law enforcement, prompting Arthur to open the door. The police entered with their guns drawn, questioning Arthur about drugs. Although he denied having drugs, a small amount of marijuana was found on a table in the room. During the police search, they discovered a bag containing $60,000 in counterfeit money, causing Arthur's anxiety to spike. A seasoned officer suspected something amiss with the money, initially mistaking it for drug proceeds. This led to Arthur's arrest, along with the marijuana and counterfeit money. Once under investigation, Arthur's lawyer challenged the legality of the search, arguing that the police lacked proper justification or a warrant to enter the hotel room. The judge ultimately ruled in favor of Arthur, deeming the search operation unlawful and dismissing the case. After the case was dismissed, Arthur experienced heightened fear and paranoia. He became vigilant, meticulously searching everyone he encountered to evade detection. He was acutely aware that the FBI would closely monitor him after discovering the counterfeit money in his possession. Arthur decided to stop counterfeiting and cut ties with gangs. Yet he remained anxious and yearned for a fresh start. Seeking change, he attempted to reconnect with his father, who left him and his mother when he was 11. After some searching, he found someone with his father's name residing in Alaska. Arthur sent a letter to his father through mail. His father responded by calling him, and they had a one-hour conversation. They agreed to meet, so Arthur flew to Alaska. When he saw his father, he felt a mix of happiness and anger. It was good to see his father, but he also felt upset about why his father had left him and his mother to struggle alone. Over the next few days, Arthur and his father bonded, enjoying conversations, laughter, and stories about their lives. His father consistently apologized, explaining that when he left Arthur and his mother, he was dealing with personal struggles and psychological crises. These heart-to-heart talks brought them closer, and Arthur started to see his father as a father figure in his life. Once Arthur felt comfortable with his father, he decided to confide in him about the counterfeit money situation. His father listened attentively and showed a keen interest in the matter. To Arthur's surprise, his father approached him the next day, expressed that he was facing difficulties, and suggested printing money to improve their situation. Arthur was taken aback and reminded his father about the risks of getting caught and going to jail. However, his father emphasized that Arthur had a talent and it was a blessing that they should utilize. He assured Arthur that he would help and pointed out that they were in a remote place where they wouldn't be easily discovered. Arthur started thinking about it. He was afraid, but at the same time he wanted to make his father proud of him. So Arthur decided to start printing again for his father's sake. His father, who had abandoned him and left him and his mother to suffer from poverty. Anyway, Arthur had hidden some paper and printing machines in a warehouse in Chicago. So he asked his friends to ship the paper and machines to Alaska. The items arrived, and they started setting up the printing workshop together. This experience brought them closer as father and son. Arthur felt proud and happy to be back at his craft, working alongside his father. However, the results were not as good as before due to the tools not being top-notch. They were all right, but the quality was lower compared to Arthur's previous work. Arthur emphasized to his father that this operation must remain secret and that the printed money should be tested before spending. Initially, his father agreed, but he didn't follow Arthur's instructions. He first informed his new wife about the money and gave her $3,000 to spend. She then gave some of that money to their neighbors for laundering, but they found the money so convincing that they didn't bother laundering it. Instead, they started spending it freely without checking its authenticity or exchanging it for real money. This reckless behavior extended to his father, wife, and neighbors, making them look foolish. Arthur sensed that something was amiss, especially when his father avoided questions about the money and his whereabouts. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Arthur promptly left Alaska. The father had learned how to print money and wanted to keep doing it on his own. Meanwhile, Arthur decided to leave Alaska at the right moment. This turned out to be a wise move because the neighbors who received the money from his father's wife were spending it recklessly. When they tried to use the counterfeit money at a store, the cashier quickly realized it was fake and called the police. The couple was arrested and later recruited as informants to help catch the person printing the fake money. The police hoped the mastermind behind the counterfeit operation would come to visit the neighbors. In the end, they arrested Arthur's father and his wife, and they recorded a conversation with their neighbors where they confessed to the entire counterfeiting operation. Then they started investigating with the help of Arthur's father's wife, who told them everything, including about Arthur and how they were associated with him. When Arthur got back to his wife, he was shocked to see FBI agents and special forces surrounding their home. Fortunately, Arthur had been careful and kept nothing illegal at home. They arrested Arthur based on his father's wife's testimony. After the trial, his father received a 5-year prison sentence, while Arthur got 3 years. His father's wife got away without any charges, and the neighbors were also spared because they cooperated with the authorities. Arthur went to prison in 2002 and spent 2.5 tough years there. It was a difficult time as he was separated from his son, and later his wife decided to leave him too. During his time in prison, Arthur reflected deeply on his life and the choices that led him there. He made a firm promise to himself that he would leave behind a life of crime for good once he was out. He eagerly awaited his release, yearning for a fresh start. However, on the day of his release, tragedy struck unexpectedly. His father passed away, marking a poignant coincidence. Despite everything, Arthur cherished his father dearly. With his father gone, the only person left in the world for Arthur was his son, Arthur III. In 2004, Arthur returned to Chicago to be closer to his 15-year-old son, Arthur. He made an effort to turn his life around by finding work, but it wasn't easy. He took on tough jobs like part-time waiter, bathroom cleaner, and other odd jobs that didn't pay much. These jobs were often temporary or part-time, making his life unstable, especially with financial responsibilities for his son and his son's mother. Although Arthur still had counterfeit money hidden away, he was determined not to use it again. He feared it would lead him back into a troubled life. However, there were times when he had to rely on it to support his family. Despite the challenges, Arthur worked hard to rebuild his relationship with his son. Their bond grew stronger, and Arthur's efforts paid off as their relationship improved significantly. In 2005, the famous magazine Rolling Stone published a massive article about Arthur, hailing him as the world's top money forger. They claimed he had counterfeited over $10 million. When Arthur's son read this, he was shocked and couldn't believe it. He argued, "There's no way someone can counterfeit that much money." But Arthur revealed that over the years, he had indeed forged even more money than what the article mentioned. His son was astounded by the scale of his father's activities in this illegal field. Influenced by the article, Arthur III decided to try counterfeiting money himself. He used a regular printer and paper to print bills after scanning real money on his computer at home. When his mom caught wind of what her son was doing, she urgently contacted Arthur. He felt a pang of guilt and shame, realizing that the magazine's glorification of his crimes misled his son.
And I never thought for one moment that the glamorization would lead to my son printing.
He never expected his son to follow in his criminal footsteps. Rushing home, Arthur found his son printing fake $20 bills on a regular printer. It was a tough time for his son, dealing with drug issues and struggling mentally. The father and son argued fiercely over the son's counterfeiting activities. The argument escalated, leading the son to storm out of the house with Arthur chasing after him. They continued their heated exchange outside, unaware of a police car passing by. The police noticed the commotion and stopped to investigate. Arthur felt trapped when his son threw the fake money on the ground and tried to retrieve it. As the police officer approached, Arthur tried to downplay the situation, claiming it was just a family disagreement that they would resolve. However, the officer asked for Arthur's name and filed a report. Arthur knew trouble was brewing as the police called for backup from the FBI. Shortly after, Arthur was arrested on the spot. After collecting all the money and evidence, they took Arthur to the FBI office. One of the senior officers said, "Look, Arthur, we know that these $20 bills weren't your work, but these $100 bills we found in your wallet look familiar to us." Of course, these were some of the counterfeit money that Arthur was still using from time to time. At that moment, Arthur realized he wouldn't escape the consequences. The first time he went to jail, he got a 3-year sentence because they didn't catch him with fake money. But this time, they caught him red-handed with the same crime, and the proof was undeniable. Ultimately, he received a 9-year prison sentence. His son, Arthur III, was only 15 and ended up spending a few months in a youth detention center before being released. The FBI wanted Arthur III to testify against his father, but he refused. As for Arthur, entering prison again shattered his hope. His son briefly lived with his mother, but they didn't get along, so he left to live independently. Over the years, Arthur III focused on counterfeiting money. Although his fake bills weren't very sophisticated, just scanned images, he had a lot of customers. He always dealt with large orders. As time passed, Arthur III improved at counterfeiting and upgraded his tools and equipment. He wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, so he set up his own workshop with advanced printers and tools to handle bigger orders. One day in 2009, when he turned 18, Arthur III was working on a large order when a swarm of FBI agents raided the place. He was near the workshop's door when the police barged in. His immediate instinct was to shut the door, thinking it would keep his equipment hidden. However, the FBI apprehended him, opened the workshop door, and found the counterfeit money being printed, solid evidence of his crime. When his father learned of this in prison, he was devastated. His son's imprisonment due to counterfeiting was a painful blow, and Arthur realized his own influence had led to this outcome. Arthur asked to be moved to the prison where his son was, and after about a month, his request was granted. He was thrilled to finally reunite with his son, even if they were both behind bars. Over the years, they bonded and made up for lost time. They discussed their aspirations for the future once they were free. Arthur's dream was to become an artist, a passion he pursued even in prison by drawing. Upon his release in 2015, Arthur dove into the art world. He incorporated elements from his counterfeiting days into his artwork, like watermarks and color-changing ink. These unique features made his art stand out, and he sold his pieces for tens of thousands of dollars each. His life took a complete turn. Instead of forging $100 bills, he crafted single artworks worth thousands. Arthur found a new purpose and success in the legitimate art world, leaving his counterfeit past behind. And here we reach the end of Arthur's story. But before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for following along. See you in the next video, and ciao!